So what are we doing? Engineering, essentially we're making sure that we are getting all of the engineering done so that we are ready to go with packages to the marketplace. We're looking at the construction now to deliver things that are high visibility. I mean, obviously, what does that mean? Well, we want people to know that we're still doing this. But I'm not going to just burn money just to make it look good. What we're going to do is make sure that we're doing jobs that actually have a path, or on the path of the construction. So this year you'll see some work around the anode baking furnace, around the anode plant, as we had planned. A little bit slower. We're using this time, we still have over 100 design engineers working. We've returned some back to Montreal. We've kept a lower presence on site, partly through the winter, partly through just the cash available. So the idea is that these engineers will actually have not just the conceptual engineering done, it'll actually be a build package. So essentially we'll be able to plug and play. And we think this gives us an advantage in the marketplace that we're ready to go. So when we see a turn, or even stability, that this project will be able to be ahead of the market. And I think I'm doing. What does that mean? Well, one consequence of this financial crisis, I keep saying that, is that sadly the labour crisis has meant as people are building. We had a plan to be able to look at hiring people on construction locally, and then regionally, and then provincially, and then by Canada, and then internationally. Well, the likelihood is that we'll be able to keep that all in Canada, which is good. So that helps. The commodity prices, the steel that we will use to build the plant, actually is a lower price right now. So there might be some advantages. And that advantage by being early means we can capture the lower cost position and hopefully the labour availability. Hopefully it's a buyer's market. What does that look like? Well, locally, we're still working on the site, preparing the ground. It's a huge site. And I'll not flip back to the previous slide. But we've cleared many acres of ground in readiness for the camp, readiness for laydown area, readiness for the actual new facilities, those white buildings that I showed you. That's going on and will continue to go on. We think we can have all of that done with a local context. Some of you may have been involved when we did some of the work around 1A, 1B in preparation. That was all done very well by local contractors. And that local probably extended to Prince George. So Kitimat Terrace, Prince George, maybe more. And that was huge. I think that's also an advantage. But these are an idea of the things that we're going to be doing. So these are in the tens of millions. These are not pocket change. And in a normal business, if somebody was bringing a $10 million project, they'd probably think, wow, awesome. Okay, we tend to get a little bit blasé about, say, tens of millions. But nevertheless, it's significant money. That's a big hole in the ground. This was actually work that was done locally by our own forces, by local contractors, and it was done first class. By first class, what I mean, we didn't have one injury. And this was a very complicated job done in a very hazardous area. This was done inside of building 205, around the substations, on cable relocation, right under the switch yards. So we were working live with all of our high voltage cables still running, and we excavated and created a new cable corridor in readiness for the substation to come in. That was extremely well done. I think that's given us a huge confidence in the capacity of local businesses. And that's going to come through, because now we will give contracts, and that'll come in a minute, to an award and bid locally, because I think we're demonstrating to Rio Tinto just what can be done. Big day on the 25th. Basically, we're bringing in 40 local contractors. We are looking at really how those folks can engage in 2009, 2010, and essentially maximize their participation in this project, become a foundation in this project. And that's the way I'd always hoped it would be, that it would be essentially our project, to be a regional project. Because if we're going to build this thing and the locals weren't benefiting from that, it doesn't seem to sit well. Wouldn't sit well with me. So it has to be our project. Building the future together, I'll stand by that every day because it means a lot to me. It doesn't just mean Rio Tinto, it doesn't just mean me, it doesn't just mean the union, our existing union. I think it means all of us. It's a catalyst. It's not necessarily a solution to the environmental, to the economic situation in the Northwest, but it should be a catalyst and probably a platform. I think the success of the Prince Rupert container terminal brings part of that too. Confidence, done, delivered, and worked. Not without its challenges for sure, and this one won't be either. So essentially, this is to help the local folks get ahead of the game, understand what we need from many of the standards, health and safety, environment. What do we need? What does that mean? How do they bid? How do they evaluate it? How do they really become competitive? And we want to give these folks an edge, and that's why we're putting this session on. It'll be the first of them. Things that are going to go out, the ABF is the anode bacon furnace. It's a complicated piece of plant. It's essentially a large kiln, but it's built in multiple flue walls, gas fired. Thermally, this thing's going to run at about 1150 to 1200 degrees centigrade, so it's very, very hot. So you can imagine the infrastructure. We don't want it to move because it cracks the refractory, so the pre-work around that furnace is critical. Stormwater, we're already seeing that as you change things, and it rains a little bit around here. I don't know if you've noticed that. Sometimes snow. So actually handling all of this rain and snow is a big part of the big site. So we could put all of the prep work in for that to be able to let the water get away from the site, so we can actually physically work on the site. KMP Village is actually the camp. So looking at again the pre-plumbing, if you like, for all of that work. What else has got to go on? Again, we believe it or not, I mean, we have an organisation which keeps the plant running in terms of snow removal. It's hugely efficient. What do we need to do in medical services if we're going to have more contractors, more people engaged? Then we have to not only be able to manage the first aid visit, but people just getting sick. How are we going to handle that if they're from out of town, out of the region, maybe out of province? We've got to have some facility to be able to handle all of that. A roll, the wharf and heavy haul is the roll-on, roll-off. What do we do with where we plan to bring in modules? We've got to be able to handle those. There's work got to be done around the wharf to be able to bring these pieces of equipment in. Moore Creek Bridge is not a small job. Again, handling, logistics, cleanup, demolition. Relocations and tie-ins is huge because we plan to run the existing site for the most part of the construction. So I have to be able to run the old site. I'm not going to switch it off. So we've got to be able to be connected electrically, thermally. We've got to be able to service it with robots. So all of this has to be in readiness and prep. This is the work that we can do to get ahead. It's a bit small, but essentially I think what's important here is this is where we see the spend taking place in the local area, and delighted to say that we expect it to be as high as 90%. The packages that we can deliver for this essentially will be predominantly localized. So we've got to be ready for it. As a regional district, I would think it might be important to get an understanding of what that all means. And that's where we need to get into the next level of detail. How do we get prepared? What are we going to do? What do those businesses need? It might not be me directly, but it might be indirectly. What does that look like? Does it require infrastructure? Who can we talk to? Who can we lobby? What can we do to be ready? And we've got a little bit of time, sadly, but we'll make sure we use it. Let's not use this downturn just to sit back. Let's use it. Let's get ready.